I'm Indy Nidell, and this is Out of the Foxholes, where I sit here and think about my chair of infinite knowledge and answer all your questions about World War II. Remember that if you desperately want me to deal with your question, then Time Ghost Army members get either prioritized or guaranteed answers. Although it is taking us time to get through them all, just be patient because we have the time. This question comes from Time Ghost Army Captain Jolly British Chaps. One chap, right. Jolly British Chap asks, during World War I, various battlefield songs and poetry were pretty commonplace within the various forces in order to boost morale amongst the men. But I was curious as to whether this trend continued as heavily in World War II, and do you know of any good examples? Being British, I only really know of one marching cadence, which references the World Wars. 3 German officers crossed the Rhine. Right. Just like the Great War, military songs are common across all belligerent armies in World War II. This is a really big topic, so I'll just give you a brief outline of a few of the most popular Western ones. It will provide you with a general idea, though, of what they are all like. Well, we can start with your example. 3 German officers crossed the Rhine. Its origins are somewhat murky, but some version has been sung by British soldiers since even before the Great War, but definitely during the Great War. See, it's the same song as Parlez-vous, and the lyrics often vary, but each version is usually quite explicit and ends with hinky-dinky parlez-vous or something very similar to that. That's the version I knew when I was a kid. Mademoiselle from Armentières, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentières, parlez-vous. Mademoiselle from Armentières hasn't been kissed in 40 years. Hinky-dinky parlez-vous. And it probably was not kissed, but that is how my mom used to sing that song. Unsurprisingly, a lot of these songs really are pretty explicit, but they're explicit in different ways, right? British soldiers have changed another Great War era song, the Colonel Bogey March, and it mocks the Nazi leadership, and, well, a lot of people know it. You may well know it. It's a classic, right? I certainly knew this when I was a kid. Hitler has only just 1 ball. Goering has 2 but very small. Himmler has something similar, and Goebbels has no balls at all. Right? That's a classic, right? You guys knew that one?
A little, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just making certain. I don't know. You grew up in France and Sweden. She grew up in Germany. I don't know if Germans sang that song.
I grew up in American school.
Oh, that's true.
We
Yeah.
sang that
Yeah,
every
okay.
day.
There were several songs about the Nazi leadership that I remember as a kid. Now, it does not take a psychologist to notice that servicemen, right, might use dark humor to relieve the tension of fighting a war. Much of the time, humor allows them to express emotions that they would otherwise have been disciplined, you know, if they didn't suppress. Bomber crews from the U.S. Air Force's 8th Air Force started singing parodies of famous American songs during leisure time. They fight fear with sarcasm, often adapting like traditional American folk songs, like they turned Down in the Valley into Down in the Ruhr Valley. So the lyrics joke about being shot down and being captured, like, write me a letter, send it to me, send it in care of Stalag Luft 3, which was the German POW camp that detains Allied airmen. Songs, well, they can actually, you know, like provide practical lessons. From 1942, American paratroopers training at Fort Benning, they started singing Blood on the Risers. And this adapts the American Civil War classic Battle Hymn of the Republic to create a jingle that reminds trainees what happens if they don't secure themselves to their risers. Let's see. There was blood upon the risers, there were brains upon the chutes, intestines were a-dangling from his paratrooper suit. He was a mess, they picked him up and poured him from his boots, and he ain't gonna jump no more. Right? But some favorites aren't actually explicit. Instead, they're kind of just just a standard popular song. German soldiers love Erika, a marching song composed in the 1930s by Herms Niel. He joined the Nazi ranks in 1933 and was eventually promoted to band leader in the Reichsarbeitsdienst, the Reich Labor Service. The song it's not really militaristic though. It just discusses a soldier's nostalgia when he sees a flower with the same name as his love back at home, a heath. And it's the same with Katyusha, which was a favorite of Soviet soldiers. This was composed in 1938 by Malvi Blanter and written by Mikhail Isakovsky. The lyrics talk about Katyusha, a girl sending her regards to her beloved serving far away on the front line. And yes, in case you are wondering, this is how the Soviet rocket artillery gets its name. The trucks were marked with a K for the Voronezh Komintern factory where they were produced. Soldiers just called it Katyusha because its official name will be kept classified until after the war. So that is a brief selection of some songs sung by servicemen in some of the belligerents of World War II. I'm actually curious about like the Chinese and Japanese ones actually. We might have to do a special about them, okay guys? Because I don't know any of them, right?
Definitely.
That'd be a good one.
Do it in Chinese then.
Yeah, I have to learn Chinese. Okay,
Yeah,
challenge accepted. I mean, 1944, the war is going to be really boring, so I'm going to have a lot of free time.
Yeah,
So.
okay, there you go.
What? What do you know that I don't know?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay, next question comes from Burris Streaming. He asks, I've heard about the Germans using skip bombing to attack Allied ships, but have never seen anything about it in documentaries. Is it true it was a regular thing? The only bombs I've heard of being used this way were dam busters, but they were claimed to be useless against ships. Keep up the great work, Indian team. Well, thank you for that. Germany did use something that might look like skip bombing against shipping, but only for a short period and with relatively limited effect. Let me explain. No, let me summarize. First of all, skip bombing is an aerial attack method in which a bomb is dropped at a very low altitude from an aircraft flying straight for the side of a ship at about 350 kilometers an hour. The time-fused bomb is dropped about 500 meters from the target, allowing it to skip across the water like a stone. Ideally, the bomb bounces into the side of the ship or submerges right next to it and boom, detonates. Now, the Germans don't really do skip bombing against ships, strictly speaking, but they have used a low-level attack called the Swedish turnip. It consists of approaching the enemy ship at an even lower altitude, then 240 meters from the target, the bomb is released. From that altitude and speed, the bomb reaches the ship in just 3 seconds, and the fuses are usually set to 8 seconds, which allows the plane to fly over the ship before the bomb explodes, right? This tactic is different from skip bombing methods because the bomb is released at a much closer distance against the enemy vessel, so it doesn't really skip. Instead, it's meant to be a direct hit at the waterline. The Swedish turnip was mainly used by FW-200 Condor crews in the Luftwaffe bomber wing Kampfgeschwader 40. It was originally developed by Generalleutnant Martin Harlinghausen, the Iron Gustav, during the Spanish Civil War. In terms of how effective it is, the Condors, they sank a total of nearly 350,000 tons of shipping in the Atlantic, and that sounds pretty okay, right? But between August 1940 and June 1941, total Allied shipping losses there amounted to just a bit under 3.1 million tons. To be fair, Kampfgeschwader 40 achieved their numbers with a very small number of planes, and of the 20 to 30 Condors available at any one time, only around a quarter were usually serviceable. Still, their effectiveness is clearly quite limited. By the middle of 1941, the Swedish turnip was becoming more and more dangerous to do. The Allies had developed a much more organized convoy system and introduced catapult-assisted merchant ships. It meant that large Condors were easy prey for AA guns and Hurricane fighters. This has encouraged a switch to the safer, but less accurate, high-altitude bombing. Following a failed attack on convoy HG-65 on June 15, 1941, the Swedish turnip was ordered to be discontinued as a regular attack tactic. Interestingly though, a Swedish turnip will be used again during the raid on Bari in December this year. I do not mention that in the episode for that week, which I shot yesterday. So now you've heard it here, yeah? Because there is much more interesting stuff about that raid that I cover in the regular episode than Swedish turnip bombing techniques. Okay, and now a question from Time Ghost Army Specialist John Parron. Hi team, hi John Parron. It was believed that Rommel despised Italian officers, but was impressed by many of the men. Were there examples of Italians achieving any notable victories under German command at any level, from platoon size up, at any theater of the war, even with their mostly inferior equipment? Take care, and thanks for all your hard work. Well, this is a really straightforward question to answer. Yes, many of them. But it does bring up quite an interesting point. There is a common misconception about the performance of the Italian units in the North African theater. And this is mainly down to two reasons. One, the collapse of the Italian 10th Army following Operation Compass permanently tarnished the reputation of the Italian army as an effective fighting force. And two, Anglo and German historiography will disproportionately attribute Axis success to German forces. The majority of Axis forces in the African theater were in fact Italian, but accounts from the Italian perspective are often forgotten. Axis victories in North Africa were shared German and Italian victories. Sure, German armor spearheaded the attacks, but this was also done with Italian armored formation and the essential support of Italian infantry divisions. I can give you some examples of notable Italian actions in North Africa. These are from Operation Crusader. Let's see, we can start with the two battles of Bir el Gobi. The first one, November 19th, 1941, the 132nd Ariete Armored Division was able to pin down and eventually force the withdrawal of the 22nd Armored Brigade. The British expected little resistance and a rapid Italian collapse, as happened a year earlier during Operation Compass. But they ended up with considerable losses, and this can be attributed to poor tactics on the British part, but also superior training and coordination with infantry on the Italian side. Okay, sources vary on the exact losses the British took, but it is definitely a fair bit more than the Italians. And the point is that the Italians were effective at really weakening the initial armored assault in the opening phase of Operation Crusader. They exhausted the British forces, and they limited their ability to strike any decisive blow to Rommel's forces. And during the second battle, heavy resistance was put up by the Giovanni Fascisti Brigade and various Bersaglieri units. Like 1,400 or so Italians held back the 11th Indian Brigade and the 7th Armored Division for 4 days before being relieved by German Panzer Division. The Italian forces set up effective defenses, pinning down and exhausting the Allied armored formation. It meant that Rommel's panzers lived to fight another day. There's also the Italo-German defenses at Hellfire Pass from November 41 to January 42. Although the history of that will most often focus on the German perspective, 60% of the troops in the field were Italian. The general commander of the pass was Italian as well, Fedele de Giorgis. His defense of Hellfire, which was besieged for 2 months, eventually earned him a Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. De Giorgis is one of just 9 Italian officers to earn this medal during the entire war. But the Italian army, it wasn't as bad as you might think. Although I don't think making a big deal about being good at pursuing the war aims of fascist Italy and Nazi Germany is such a good thing to do. And with that lame ending, I will conclude this installment of Out of the Foxholes. Look, if you want to learn more about the North African campaign, then go and check out which one. Oh, you can go and check out the special episode we did about whether it really was a war without hate. You can check that out right here. And if you have a question you would like answered, You can ask it at community.timeghost.tv. And if you'd like your question to be prioritized or to have a guaranteed answer, then join the Time Ghost Army at patreon.com or at timeghost.tv, our website. I'm sure you all also know by now where you definitely should not ask your question. I'm not even going to say it. The Forbidden Zone. The no question asking place. It's in the comments. Okay, I said it. See you next time.